So I got an email saying I won a week on the world's first residential cruise ship, the Villa Vie Odyssey. Will I be taking them up on this offer? Stay tuned to find out the pros and cons of it. So when I first heard from Villa Vie, I thought, what a great opportunity. So I actually didn't get the email to start with because it went to my spam, and they called me and resent the email. But then I started looking into it a bit further and I had some concerns. So for those of you who don't know, Villa Vie is the world's first sort of affordable residential cruise ship that is sailing. There is the World that has been sailing for quite a while, but that's far out of most people's price range. So the Villa Vie and their ship, the Odyssey, has been sailing since October last year. But there have been a lot of dramas involved and a lot of problems, and it's not sailing at full capacity. So a lot of people wondering whether it will last or not. I've done quite a few videos on Villa Vie, the different packages available, and just the pros and cons of it. So I will link those up above and down below in the description. So if you don't know a lot about Villa Vie and you want to check out more, check out some of my other videos. But if you do, so this is my thoughts on the prize. So it was their anniversary giveaway, and they were giving away 365 7-day cruises, and so I won one of these. So I have to say the woman that phoned me was very nice, and they've been very nice to me via email because I've had a couple of questions. So far, actually, I have to say my experience with Villa Vie has been quite positive. Anyway, so the offer. So it's not really a free cruise, so you have to still pay the taxes and port fees, and so that's $57 per person per night. I did get clarification on this, that if I traveled solo, would I be paying double? But no, it's just still the $57 per person per night. So if you are traveling solo, that is quite a good deal, actually. But still, in Australian dollars, that's 88 Australian dollars up to like 100, depending on the exchange rate. At the moment, actually, the exchange rate's not too bad for the US dollar. Well, it's better than it has been. But still, I can get cruises out of Australia for around the $100 a night mark. So it's, not free. So yeah, so the cost of it was one of the things that I was thinking about. And also the fact that you have to start and leave in a different country. So obviously that adds to the cost quite a lot. And they did give several ideas of itineraries that you could do, and like one of the ones that they gave, which was in January, the French Polynesia leg, and the airfare to get to Papeete is 1,410 Australian dollars, and returning from Aitutaki Island, from the Cook Islands, was $1,200. So that added $2,610 onto the price tag. So we're now getting up to nearly $3,000 for Australian dollars for a week long free cruise. So yeah, that's quite a lot of money, like $3,000, I can do quite a lot of travel for that. So that, with the cost of it, was probably my major concern. Also for me, like, it has to be taken by May, and so that's all down in the Australia, New Zealand, Pacific regions, and I have cruised Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific quite a few times. So not really the itineraries that appealed to me. I did ask them about this, and they did get back to me, and they said that you could travel up until December, but at an extra fee. That was $102 a day. So we're now looking at, 150 to 200 Australian dollars a day. So really not much of a giveaway there. One of my other concerns, so this wasn't in the giveaway terms and conditions, but I have heard that if you rent or do anything through Villa Vie, the company, you can't then do a private rental later. And as I showed in my one of my other videos, it is much cheaper to rent privately. So this isn't in the agreement, so I would want to get that clarified. But yeah, if you want to see some comparisons, if you look at my rent to own video, I'll link that up above. But yeah, so for the monthly cost when I did that for a porthole cabin for 1 month for single occupancy, in US dollars was $6,750 for private rental compared to $9,540 for renting through Villa Vie. So that is, a lot more, nearly half as much again. There are more affordable options through Villa Vie, so, watch the video if you're interested in those. The other thing that worried me is that there is no guarantee of port stops. Now, I know this is the case on all cruise ships, but, usually like the home port is a pretty safe port to be getting on a cruise ship. So, like if I sail out of Sydney, it's going to sail out of Sydney. So, I mean, at the worst, it might be a day delayed or something like that. Sydney actually doesn't really have any problems. Brisbane, it has happened a couple of times because of hurricane season, but, it's still going to sail out of that home port. So the problem with these is, a lot of them were small islands, and if there is a weather problem, then yeah, you don't know, you might be spending $1,400 on a flight to somewhere and then the ship doesn't make it to that port. There's been a lot of controversy over Villa Vie not making ports. That's sort of a different case. That is to do with them not qualifying for a couple of ports. So there was that they had said that they would go to Antarctica, but they obviously don't have an Antarctica ready ship. And also when they went to the Amazon, there is only so many days that you can be in the country, and they had done like a whole trip all the way up the Amazon, and that exceeded the number of days you could travel without having a much larger number of local crew. So they had to change that. So, and there's also controversy around their Australia leg. They're having to miss a couple of ports, maybe because of the restrictions of getting border control on to look at the pets that are on board, because there's cats on board, or maybe not for that reason. I've heard two different stories on why they've missed a couple of ports, but they're a couple of the smaller ones, so they're still managing, hopefully, to dock in all of the major Australian ports. And I guess overall, the lack of transparency that Villa Vie's been known for, I did find the fact that they sent out the email initially with no contract or anything to see what you were signing up for. It was just, reply to this within 7 days with your dates and the names and passport information of the two people that are going on it. That worried me, but I did email back and I asked them about solo cruising costs, how much it would cost if you needed to stay on a bit longer to make the trip work. Like one of the 7 days that they had put down, it started on a sea day, so obviously you would have to pay extra because you can't join the ship on a sea day. But they did send me the agreement. They sent me the information on extra days, which was $156 per day if you stayed on longer. So that's over 200 Australian dollars. So that is actually, getting up to, a reasonably decent cruise ship price. Yeah, so there's just a few things that worried me about it. And also a week. A week just isn't probably really long enough to evaluate whether you want to stay on the ship permanently, or, in my case, I don't think I'd ever want to do permanently, but I would be interested in doing sort of a 3 to 5 year stint, seeing the world. I love the idea of seeing the world from a cruise ship, and Villa Vie has always interested me because of the fact that they spend, more than 1 day in most of the ports. So yeah, I just don't think 7 days is probably enough, even if you did, mostly sea days, enough time to really see what you think of the ship and the dynamics of the people on board and all of that. So as I say, I asked some questions. I have to say they were very quick to get back to me, really nice. I have actually emailed them with my answer as well, and they were very nice about that. So yeah, I asked for an agreement. They sent through a sample agreement. I assume this, would be the same. It would just be the names changed. I have to say it was, legally tight in favor of the company. So some of the good and bad points from the agreement that I came up with was good points that the prize was clearly defined. So it was a 7-day cruise with accommodation, meals, beer and wine at lunch and dinner, Wi-Fi, housekeeping, laundry and activities. The mandatory fee was stated up front, so the $57 per person per day, and that this covered port and service fees. There was some transparency about the limits, that it specifies that flights, visas, insurance are not included, and that you can opt out of the marketing use, but you have to actually give written notice before sailing to opt out of their marketing. But as it's a giveaway, that's probably fair enough. But the things that worried me, is the no guarantee of ports, and that it's non-refundable. So the $57 a day, if it's cancelled, if you can't get to the ship, whatever, you've paid it and it's non-refundable. So essentially you're paying for a 7-day trial cruise and you're paying it up front. And yeah, that was worrying. And also that, you'd have to pay $156 a day if you couldn't, get 7 days to line up with 2 port stops. And as I've said, the cabotage restrictions, which means that you have to embark and disembark at a different country's ports, that obviously adds in quite a lot of money. There was one leg that finished in Australia that I thought could make it slightly cheaper. The tight turnaround, so you had to notify them within 7 days, so it didn't really give you a lot of time to think about it and plan. But then again, you have to sail by May, so I guess you probably can't have too much time to stop and think about it. And also the marketing publicity clause, so they say they can use your name, photo and statements for promotions, and you have to opt out of that. But the bigger issue is that you agree not to make disparaging or defamatory remarks. So that could be potentially used to silence any criticism. And having seen, some of the videos from some people that have done stints on the ship and the positivity of their videos does make me wonder how tight that is and, how much you can say. So that also really worried me. So there was also the limited liability waiver. So you bear full risk for loss, injury or damage. So that's normal for travel, but, combined with all the other clauses, it just doesn't give you very much protection overall. So will I be taking up this offer? Obviously, the answer to that is no. And I did email them this and they were really nice in their reply, saying, to get back to them if I was interested in going on Villa Vie again later. And, really, mostly I would love to try it, but the timing, such a short turnaround, and I'm going on a big Europe trip in April to June next year, so I would have to get it done before then, and that would involve taking more time off work before that trip. So that was obviously one of my big worries. And the cost was probably the biggest worry, because in the end it was going to end up costing quite a lot, probably as much as my 3-week cruise on the Sun Princess in Europe next year. So yeah, they were the main reasons why I didn't take up the offer. So when I let them know that I wasn't going to take up the offer, that was when they did offer me that you could travel up until December next year. If you traveled between May the 1st and the December 31st, the daily rate would be $102 per person per day. So that's not as bad, and it is something to think about. And I guess if I wasn't going on such a long Europe trip and had another cruise planned later in the year, it would be something I would try to work out if I could do. And I might still look at it, though I've only got like about a day left. So yeah, that's my summation of I won a trip on Villa Vie Odyssey. So let me know what you think in the comments below, if you would go on the Odyssey if you won this trip. And if you like this video, please do like and subscribe. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you subscribe, it would really help me. So it costs you nothing to subscribe, but it really does help my channel grow. If you love this video, you can always give a super thanks. That would be great. and check out the rest of my videos. Until next time, bye.